Right, welcome back. And that was an interview by our colleague Hani Farag, who is our correspondent to Sharm el-Sheikh in this very important conference, the 9th edition of this anti-corruption conference, very much praised by the whole world and one of the biggest events in fighting corruption worldwide, with Her Excellency Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Hala Saeed, who spoke and briefed us on the measures that were taken by Egypt, or what we have achieved in the issue of fighting corruption. Let me come to our topic and welcome our guest, Dr. Ibrahim, Mostafa Ibrahim, former senior advisor to the Minister of Investment. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in your program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Ibrahim, let me start with what we have just seen. And Dr. Hala Saeed spoke about what Egypt has done in order to fight corruption. Let me take your reading to the efforts that were exerted during the past period, all these years, particularly the past few years, and the measures that were taken in Egypt in order to be able to prevent or corruption prevention and at the same time combating this phenomenon.
Look, it's very important to highlight this issue because it affects the business environment in general and the economy as well. As Dr. Hala said in the interview, it's a very important issue that to reduce the corruption in the country by having, our own strategy that that was launched in 2014. This is the first version till 2018. The second version was launched, in 2018 to 2022. Egypt has been doing great in this regard by having several procedures to first, digitalize the economy, which means this will, as Dr. Hala said, will decrease the interaction between the government employees and whether the citizens or the institutions that are dealing with these with the government entities. It is very important, actually. The other thing is the awareness and the integrity ambassadors, as she said. These things are very important and considered one of the measures that should be taken, and I think it will get its impact on the ground very soon as well. In addition to that, developing the education, the awareness among students and university students as well. This, are very important. In addition to that, the political will that is covering all these efforts is very important, because no policy will succeed without having the political will on the top of all these things.
Very much indeed. When we speak about corruption and fighting corruption, and how does this reflect directly and indirectly on creating a conducive atmosphere for more investments, and at the same time work with our plans for the sustainable development, our vision 2030?
Just look, if you look to the countries that are top ranked in fighting corruption or business ease of doing business in the business environment, we'll see, the top ranked countries are the same, in both categories. Singapore, New Zealand, all Scandinavian countries, they are having, they are considered they are considered in the top ranking category in the doing business report. That measuring the ease of doing business, as well as the transparency institution that that produces the corruption index report, measuring more than 139 countries around the world. And Egypt still, it's not in a good position in this report, but it's been upon these procedures that are being taken by the this might increase, enhance the ranking of Egypt in the coming reports. Many reports said that, many the OECD reports said that, in African countries, cost of corruption is very high, actually, because most of the costs are not calculated in a formal way, because it's getting around the formal way. And when you calculate your investment cost, you can't consider this. You can't put it in a formal report. This is very, I mean, reflects a very bad image about the investment environment. Whether in any country, if they don't have a way to fight and combat corruption to the minimum, I mean, levels. That's why, I mean, considering, I mean, they're having this event and considering what happened, I mean, and the lesson what happened by the government, I mean, to enhance the business environment, focusing on fighting corruption is very important. As we have an academy that under the authority of auditing, that central auditing, I mean, focusing on increasing the awareness among government employees and other community members to to increase the awareness in the city about this important issue.
Yes. Lastly, just to transfer into our main topic of tonight, how do the world see the efforts exerted by Egypt, particularly that we are aware that during the past years Egypt was not on the top rank of countries who were really fighting corruption, and that the past few years has seen a kind of dramatic transformation of Egypt towards this particular issue?
I mean, for the last, I mean, 6 or 7 years, we adopted the approach of prioritizing our issues that to focus on. The main issue in that time was to retrieve the political and security stability in that time, because it's one of the main factors that the investor is looking to when they come to take a decision regarding investing in any country. This is what was very important. The second thing was to balance, I mean, to gain the balance for the economy again. I mean, to achieve this balance, it wasn't an easy mission because we were having an economic crisis at that time, and we actually as a country, we have succeeded to achieve the balance in the economy by applying a very strong and severe program for monetary and financial policy, which I mean, this program has achieved very well on the ground. And this will take me to the report that has been issued recently by the IMF, expecting what will go on the ground regarding the exports and the FDI and the macroeconomic picture of the Egyptian economy. We are expecting, I mean, that the Egyptian export to reach around 70 billion in 2024, 2025, moving from 35 billion was achieved this year, actually, which is very, very, very important to have these figures, as well as regarding the FDI that will increase from 8 this year, that will be achieved this year, to reach 16 billion by 2024, 2025.
Yes, indeed,
yeah, these are very positive things. I mean, signals when you hear these figures, I mean, regarding the Egyptian economy, and it will grow by, will exceed, I mean, the growth rate will exceed 6.5 within the coming 4 years. It's very important because this should be, I mean, a kind of positive signal to all, I mean, whether the local investor, regional and international investors.
Very much indeed. The IMF reports on the predictions of Egypt's...
by the way, the IMF report and the other institutions report, I mean, highlighted the issue of corruption and governance, all this stuff. That's why Egypt's focusing on these things to enhance in the coming few years, and having a kind of structural reform that should be applied in after having this, I mean, the first I mean, program of reform that have been applied during the last 3-4 years.
Indeed, indeed. And so has been the reports, not just by the IMF, but also by the top-notch economic...
by the way, Bloomberg said that Egypt will be next year, I mean, the top among the Arab countries in achieving the highest growth rate by achieving 5.9, which is very exciting to have this number, I mean, this figure among the Arab countries.
Bloomberg, the IMF, Bloomberg, also the Fitch, and
I consider these institutions are kind of certificates to the Egyptian economy that they are doing very well, which means, on
track. Exactly. Before we move on with our main topic, let me here take this report. And Egypt supports Lebanon in the field of natural gas to urgently generate electricity. Let's watch.
Egypt prepares to host the conference of the state parties in the United Nations Agreement for Combating Corruption. Egypt hosts the 9th edition of the state parties of the United Nations Agreement for Combating Corruption, dubbed the United Nations Against Corruption, that runs from the 13th till the 17th of December at the International Conferences Center at the Red Sea Resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Sharm el-Sheikh has finished all the preparations to host this conference, which is considered the biggest event for combating corruption in the whole world and reflects the world's appreciation for the efforts exerted by Egypt in the field of preventing and combating corruption. On the sidelines of the conference, head of the Administrative Control Authority, Minister Hassan Abdeshafi Ahmed, and his Saudi counterpart, Mr. Mazen Al-Karmouz, signed the Memorandum of Understanding in the field of preventing and combating corruption.
Lebanon has asked for Egypt's support in the field of natural gas to urgently produce electricity. The cabinet in a statement said that during a meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi last week, Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati has asked for a number of demands, including natural gas to urgently generate electricity for the Lebanese people, adding that President al-Sisi directed the government to meet these demands as quickly as possible. The President affirmed Egypt's keenness to achieve the Lebanese interests and spare Lebanon from the dangers posed by the region's conflicts. President al-Sisi reiterated that this comes as part of Egypt's keenness to help the Lebanese state's capability and strengthen, as well as people's wealth. For his part, Mikati hailed Egypt's continued and sincere efforts to mobilize international support to Lebanon on all levels in light of the hard challenges faced by the Lebanese people, especially at the political and economic levels. He hailed Egypt's role as a main pillar to preserve stability in Lebanon and the Arab region. Earlier this month, Mikati hailed Egypt's continuous support to his country during its critical times and hardships. He said that Lebanon would never forget that despite running challenges, Egypt was the first country which dispatched foodstuff and aid planes to Lebanon after the 2020 Beirut massive explosion, in addition to its assistance amid the coronavirus crisis. In a separate meeting, Mikati held talks with Prime Minister Mostafa Madbouli. The Prime Minister said that Mikati's visit to Egypt came at a very important time for Lebanon and noted that President al-Sisi had ordered the urgent supply of gas to Lebanon to help solve the country's power shortage. Mikati reviewed proposed areas of cooperation and support, which include strengthening cooperation on gas and electricity, trade, especially in regard to the Lebanese agricultural products, and the provision of aid including food, baby formula and medicine. Madbouli confirmed that the President had issued clear instructions to the government that any necessary aid should be provided as soon as possible. He added that the Lebanese proposal for a shared electricity would be assessed as quickly as possible and that a date would soon be set for the next session of the Joint High Committee of the two countries.